Hi and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave and this is episode 1886A and today's date is June 6th, 2019, and the title of the episode is Boom, ECB falls in line with the Fed, economic system protected. So I have a question for you. Are we looking at the start of the next stock market crash? You can see that it has been a long upward run for stocks, but recently the market has started to topple. The big question is, how far will the market fall? And during this time, Noble Gold, they have been getting their clients to buy precious metals as a hedge against their pension funds losing massive chunks of their investments. If you're worried about another market crash, give them a call at 877-646-5347 and make sure you mention X22 Report or click the link below. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, just a couple of days ago, we heard from the Fed, and they were building the narrative that they were looking to cut rates, that they were looking to start stimulus. Now, remember, from the very beginning, going back in time, Trump has been tweeting out contradicting the Fed, telling the Fed, listen, you need to stop raising rates. This is not going to help the economy. It's going to destroy the economy. And each time he did this, he showed how every time the Fed went ahead and raised rates, how it destroyed the stock market, how it brought it down. Then Trump said, listen, now since you're not raising rates anymore, you know what would be really good? If you started to cut rates and begin stimulus. This would send the entire economic system to the moon. Now, during this period of time while he was tweeting all this out, he was planning, and I'm not just saying it was him, there are many patriots behind the scenes that are planning this. This was well orchestrated to make sure that everyone knew that the patriots were in control and that the Fed is responsible for the market going up, the market going down, the economy doing well, the economy not doing well. He is setting up the central bank to take the fall a little bit at a time so nobody notices. This is part of the plan. Why is he doing this? He needs to do this because the system that we're in right now is falling apart. He understands this. The patriots understand this. Why do you think he's asking for stimulus? Why do you think he wants the rates cut? Because he knows a free market where the rates would move up and the Fed was not stimulating the economy, what would happen to the economy right now? It would fall apart. It would implode. That's why when we saw the rates moving up, what was happening? The economy was imploding. Now we know from Q, going back a couple of posts, they already knew what the Fed, the deep state plan was. They knew the plan was to bring down the economy during the 2020 elections. Q has already told us that they had a plan to counter this. And the plan looks like they're controlling and dictating to the Fed and what they want to be done. Now, since they're telling the Fed what to do, this is going to then move to the rest of the central banks around the world. They already knew this. They knew if the Fed was no longer raising rates, other central banks would no longer raise rates, which would keep the entire economic system intact for the 2020 elections. This was part of the plan. And at the same time, calling attention to the Federal Reserve, to the ECB, to the IMF, showing that they're the ones who control what happens in the economy. Think about this for a second, that they control what happens to the economy. Remember, we're not in an open, free economic system. This is a controlled economic system. This is a central bank economic system. This system that we're in was created by the central banks. They control every aspect of it today, depending on what they do. And Trump is showing the public every single time that the Fed, the ECB, the private Western central bank system, they're the ones who are responsible for all of this. And he's doing this because a lot of the economic indicators, they are not flashing green light, everything's great. Yes, the unemployment, which has been manipulated since the crisis and even before that, the GDP numbers which have been recalculated, the stock market which is completely manipulated, the gold market, precious metals market, I should say, that's been completely manipulated. That's all manipulation. That's not a real free open market. It's a manipulated market. Trump has taken control of the manipulated market and using it to his advantage. And he understands that time is running out. And he doesn't want the system to implode on itself just yet. He would like to control when the system comes down. And some of the indicators that we're talking about is retail sales. We're looking at heavy-duty trucking. And these are Class 8 trucks. These are the heavy-duty trucks, the 18-wheelers that haul things around the country. Well, those orders have dropped. They're down 27%. And when we look back in time, and we go back all the way to 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, we see that the Class 8 net orders, they are declining. What does this tell us? Well, these trucks, which are Daimler, Freightliner, Western Star, Peterbilt, Kenworth, Navistar International, Volvo, Mack, and the rest, these are the common heavy trucks on the road, used for transport, logistics, and occasionally some dump trucks for industrial purposes. But they're typically 18-wheelers. And what do they predict? Well, they predict how the economy is doing. This is traditionally seen as a coincident indicator of trade and logistic trends in the economy. So when we look at this and we see this, declining, this tells us that the economy is in trouble. When we look at housing and it's declining, it tells us the economy's in trouble. When we look at manufacturing and it's declining, this tells us the economy's in trouble. Yes, the unemployment numbers are great. The stock market's great. That's fantastic. This is what the deep state, the central bankers have been using for a very long time, the mainstream media, to convince people, look over here, not over there. Trump realizes that everything's falling apart. He needs the central bank to ramp up stimulus and to cut rates dramatically. Because what they've done here is they were tightening and they were raising rates since 2016. And they ramped it up in 2017. And they ramped it up in 2018. 2019, they're not doing anything. They're just holding steady. Now Trump needs them to bring them down because he needs corporations operational. He needs the stock market to move up. He needs companies to borrow with very low interest rates. He needs all of this to happen. And the ECB, they were looking this fall to raise rates. Remember, they put it off. And they said, okay, we'll wait and see what happens. And we'll decide in the fall period if we're going to raise rates. Now they decided that they're not going to raise rates at all. And the first half of 2020, they're going to just stay where they are in negative territory. So what Trump has done at this point, he has controlled the Fed, he has controlled the ECB, and he has stabilized the economy. Now, he wants these central banks to make the economy look great for 2020. He has different plans after 2020, but for now, he wants the economy looking great. This is all being done on purpose. It's part of the plan. After the 2020 elections, it's a completely different story. This is when he's going to start and move in on the central banks. This is when he's going to contradict the central banks because most likely they'll say the economy is very, very strong at that point. Of course, it's all the manipulated numbers. And they will start to tighten. They will start to raise rates. Now, think about the narrative that Trump already set up. He's already shown that when the Fed does something like raise rates, the stock market comes down. The housing market doesn't do well. He's already pointed this out. People will go back to his tweets. People will go back to those news reports. And they'll say, yeah, look what the Fed's doing. The Fed is destroying the economy. The ECB is destroying the economy. Trump is trying to make the economy great. They're destroying it every time they tighten, every time they raise rates. And Trump is going to use this against them. And this is how I do believe they're going to bring down the central bank. And other countries now, since we're having a change of leadership, they're also going to call out the central bank. Italy, for example, they're not working with the ECB and the EU. They're looking to start their own currency. The UK is looking to separate themselves from the EU. Other countries are sitting in the wings waiting to see how this all plays out. So these leaders of these countries, they're not going to be working to stay with the central bank system. They're going to be working to get out of the central bank system. Trump is going to be working to get out of the central bank system. This is where all of this is headed. And you can see right now the plan is moving forward. Everything is falling in line. And there's nothing the central bank can do to stop this. They're completely exposed. They're no longer behind the curtain. And Trump, as time goes on, he's going to make sure that everybody knows what the central bank is, what the central bank does. And this is going to be a problem for the central bank. Think about what they're doing right now. They're calling out the fake news media. They're draining the swamp. They're going after corrupt individuals. They're pushing forward the antitrust case against social media. All of this that we're seeing right now has to be cleaned up to go after the central bank system. Why? Because you need the mainstream media, the alternative media, social media on the side of Trump to go after the central bank system. You need fair, real reporting, not influence reporting, to go after the central bank. You need the corruption, the swamp, cleaned up before you go after the central bank. Because the central bank, that is the tough nut that they have to crack. Because the central bank, they won't give up control easily. They will stay in power. They will try to stay in power any way they possibly can. They don't like to lose power. Trump knows this. Trump understands that everything else needs to be cleaned up before they even attempt to go after the central bank system. And he will also need other leaders to work with him to go after the central bank. And I believe there's going to be many, many countries on board with this mission. And this is going to be a very big mission. Remember, the central bank system, they don't have an allegiance to a country or a group. The allegiance is to themselves. The allegiance is to control. Their allegiance is to debt. That is it. So they don't really care where they are as long as they have control. And Trump understands this, and this is why he's doing everything that we're seeing first, and then his second term, he will go after the central bank system. And it's going to fail again. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.